Oh, good morning. Hi, Christopher. Hi, Ella. Good to see you. We also have Bhante Sudazo in video. We have fixed, well, sort of, but we have less technical problems than last night. Let's put it that way. Good morning. And so today we will be studying the second part of the Ariṭṭha Sutta. We studied the first part with Bhante Sudazo yesterday, and you can find the recording of that sutta in case you missed it. You can find it in the archive of the videos of the live streams on the YouTube channel. So, if you don't have the sutta on hand, there is, I believe, a link at the beginning of the live chat. So you can click on that link on bhantesudazo.com/teachings, and you can follow along with all the teachings. Oh, hello, Cam. Good to see you. All right, so it's 8 a.m. So I'll pass it on to Bhante. How this will work is, as usual, we will be studying the sutta. If you have any questions, you can put them in the live chat. And then Bhante will also be leading us in meditation today so that we can have a sort of experiential understanding of the sutta as well as the theoretical understanding of the sutta. Good morning, gents. All right, Bhante, I'll pass it on to you.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming back. Despite the technical glitches yesterday, we're here together again. And we're going to continue looking at the Buddha's instructions on mindfulness of breathing, ānāpanassati, using the Ariṭṭha Sutta. And we had left off yesterday at the 8th of the 16 steps. So we've gone through steps 1 to 8. Just to briefly recap. So step 1 is awareness of long breath. Step 2, awareness of short breath. Step 3, training oneself to experience the whole body as one breathes. Step 4, training oneself to calm physical activity as one breathes. Step 5, training oneself to experience euphoria as one breathes. Step 6, training oneself to experience happiness or pleasure while one breathes. Step 7, training oneself to be aware of mental activity as one breathes. Step 8, training oneself to calm down one's mental activity while one breathes. So that was what we got to yesterday. So we're picking up today on step 9. So step 9 says, one trains, I will inhale experiencing the mind. One trains, I will exhale experiencing the mind. So the Pali here is very simple, chitta patisangvedi, so completely experiencing the mind. So this is distinct from chitta sankhara patisangvedi, so the step that we saw a little bit before, experiencing mental activity, experiencing mental sankharas. Here it's simply experiencing the mind itself. So my understanding of this is that the Buddha is talking here about rather than focusing on the surface level mental activities, rather looking deeper at the mind itself. A bit like if you have a painting. So the painting is paint on a surface, paint on a canvas, or paint on paper, or paint on a wall, or whatever it is. So normally we focus on the paint. That would be chitta sankhara. But here we're focusing on the mind. So that would be the surface, the canvas or the paper or the wall that the paint is on. So becoming aware of the underlying surface of the mind. rather than the objects and activities that appear on that surface. So this is bringing us into a deeper, more subtle awareness of our mind, a deeper, more subtle awareness of the mental domain. So instead of fixating on the objects themselves, we're looking at the background upon which those objects appear. We're looking at the mental stage, the stage in which the activities are happening. Like a play, like you're watching a play. Well, again, normally we tend to fixate on the characters and the activities. But here we're not looking at the characters and activities. We're looking at the stage, the surface on which all of that is appearing. So again, here as we're getting more subtly into the mind, we're paying attention to that kind of background surface of the mind. And to some degree, this arises naturally from the previous two steps. So experiencing mental activity, experiencing chitta sankhara, we're starting to bring attention towards the mind and pay attention towards mental activities, so the surface level objects and activities of mind. Then we're using our breath process, the inhaling and exhaling, to calm down, to tranquilize those mental activities, to bring stillness to the mind. And as the surface level mental activities start to settle down, then it's easier to notice the background. It's easier to notice the mental surface on which those objects and activities appear. So that's step 9. I will inhale, experiencing the mind. I will exhale, experiencing the mind. Step 10 says, I will inhale, gladdening the mind. I will exhale, gladdening the mind. And the word that's translated here as gladdening, this is an interesting word in Pali. It's abhipamodaya, which it has 3 parts. So abhi means higher or superior. Most commonly, people know this prefix through the word abhidhamma, which means higher Dhamma or superior Dhamma. This is assuming you like the Abhidhamma, of course. If you don't like the Abhidhamma, you might find that etymology a little bit distasteful. But Abhi means higher or superior. Pa, which means towards. And Modaya means delighting or rejoicing. It's from the same root from which we get mudita in the 4 Brahma Viharas, for those who are familiar with the divine mind states, the Brahma Viharas. The third one, mudita, means rejoicing, delighting. Modaya in this word also is related to the word anumodana. So anumodana literally means rejoicing together. So when somebody else does something good or wholesome, in the Pali Buddhist world, it's common to say anumodana, which means I am rejoicing together with you. So often in the Theravada world, anumodana is sometimes used instead of saying thank you. So when somebody gives you a gift, instead of saying thank you, you might say anumodana, which means I am rejoicing together with you. I am delighting together with you. So both of us are happy. So thank you gives this, can sometimes imply like the other person is doing you a favor. But anumodana is emphasizing that both of you together are uplifted by this experience, by this act of giving and receiving a gift. So abhipamodaya, then more literally it means bringing the mind to a higher joy, bringing the mind to a higher state of joy, bringing the mind to a superior delight. So the translation here, I will inhale, gladdening the mind, comes out a little bit flat. Abhipamodaya has a much more exalted or exciting feel to it. Abhipamodaya, bringing the mind to a higher state of joy, a higher state of delight. But it's good to keep in mind that at this point, we're talking about a very peaceful joy. So not the agitating kind of pleasure when we were speaking earlier about the physical euphoria that tends to arise through samadhi practice. Here with abhipamodia, the superior kind of delight, the superior kind of joy. So it's a very peaceful, serene, steady kind of joy. It's like this deep, peaceful bliss in the mind. So at this point, we're focusing on bringing that pervasive, peaceful sense of joy to the mind. And the next step says, I will inhale, concentrating the mind. I will exhale, concentrating the mind. But actually, before going to that, I just want to briefly emphasize that, so we're up to step 9, and 3 of those 9 steps are about some form of happiness or pleasure. So again, the Buddha places a tremendous importance on happiness as a factor of the path towards awakening. So intentionally cultivating happiness and delight and joy and pleasure as part of our spiritual practice is a very important element of the path to enlightenment. Again, step 11 now. Step 11 is I will inhale, concentrating the mind. I will exhale, concentrating the mind. So in Pali, that's samadahang chittang, which is another form of the word samadhi. So here it's, I will inhale, bringing samadhi to the mind, or bringing the mind into samadhi. So samadahang is actually a verb form of samadhi. So I will samadhi the mind. I will make the mind samadhi. So samadhi, as I mentioned the other day, samadhi literally means unifying or collecting together. So from the prefix sang, which means together or complete, which means towards, and di, which means to hold. So samadhi means holding the mind together. So unifying the mind, collecting the mind, stabilizing the mind. So at this point, I will inhale, concentrating the mind. I will exhale, concentrating the mind. So that means unifying the mind. It might be a better translation here. I will inhale, unifying the mind. I will exhale, unifying the mind. Or I will inhale, stabilizing the mind. I will exhale, stabilizing the mind. So it's about bringing the mind together into complete steadiness, stillness, stability, and unification. So there's no distraction or dispersion or scatteredness at this point. And noticing again that this comes immediately after gladdening the mind. So as the Buddha says constantly throughout the suttas, Sukhino Chittang Samadhyati. When the mind is happy, one attains samadhi. So happiness as an immediate precondition for samadhi is a theme that the Buddha emphasizes repeatedly throughout the suttas in a variety of different ways. So as we breathe in, steadying, stabilizing, unifying the mind. As we breathe out, steadying, stabilizing, unifying the mind. Next, I will inhale. Let's see, what step are we on here? So experiencing the mind was 9, gladdening the mind 10, concentrating the mind 11, freeing the mind 12. So the 12th step, one trains, I will inhale, freeing the mind. One trains, I will exhale, freeing the mind. So the Pali here is vimochaya, which comes from the root much, which means to release or let go of. So vimochaya is, etymologically, it's related to the word vimutti, which in the Pali Suttas usually has the meaning of complete liberation, complete freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion, complete freedom from dukkha. So vimutti then usually has the meaning of full enlightenment. But here the Buddha is not talking about full enlightenment just yet. at this stage, when he's talking about freeing the mind, he is most likely talking about gradually liberating the mind from any defilements that are apparent. So not necessarily the complete liberation of mind, but rather the gradual process of releasing our greed, releasing our desires, releasing our cravings, releasing our impulses, releasing our tendencies, releasing our aversion, releasing our resentment, releasing our irritation, releasing our fantasies, releasing our daydreaming, releasing our dullness, freeing the mind from the five hindrances. So that's probably what the Buddha means at this point. So freeing the mind from the five hindrances. And again, doing this with your breath process. So as you inhale, it's like inhaling, it's cleansing the mind of all the defilements. Like this clean purity sweeping through the mind, cleansing out all the defilements. And as you breathe out, like you're expelling all the defilements from the mind. You're letting all the defilements drop out of the mind. Then we're getting into the last set. So the 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing are sometimes said to be made of 4 sets of 4. And there certainly is some thematic similarity in each set of 4. So there's a definite basis for dividing things up in this way. So the last set of 4, the Buddha switches to a slightly different format. So the last 4 are all about what in Pali is ānāpānassati. So ānāpānassati is made of 2 parts. So anu, which means together or along with or in accordance with, and pasi, which means seeing. So ānāpānassati then means seeing in accordance with or regarding as it is. So bringing attention to the way something is. So the first one trains, I will inhale perceiving impermanence. One trains, I will exhale perceiving impermanence. So in Pali, that's anicca. So to see impermanence, to regard impermanence. So although it's translated here as perceiving, it's important to note that this is not the word sanya, which is what has historically commonly been translated as perception or perceiving. But it's ānāpānassati, which means more like regarding or contemplating. So it's actively bringing our attention to some characteristic. So contemplating might be a better word here rather than perceiving. So ānāpānassati, contemplating, drawing attention to, regarding. So I will inhale perceiving impermanence. I will inhale contemplating impermanence. I will inhale regarding impermanence. So actually, I think that contemplating is perhaps the best English word to use at this time. So this is one of the fun things, by the way, about doing these sutta studies, is that then I look back at my old translations from a few years ago and I go, oh, why did I translate it that way? That's peculiar. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, how fascinating. What an interesting way to translate it. Because of course, as time goes by, my understanding of Pali shifts and changes, but also the way I like to translate different things shifts and changes. So of course, the Pali words don't change, but as time goes by, our relationship with those words changes. And that relationship comes both from linguistic understanding and also through practice. As our practice deepens, then our relationship with the terminology of Buddhism will change. It will shift. Sometimes it just deepens the understanding that we already have, or sometimes it takes a few sideways steps. Sometimes we have a particular concept or relationship with a certain term in Buddhism. And as our practice develops, our relationship with that term takes several steps to the side. And we wind up having a rather different perception of what that word means. We wind up having a rather different experience of what that word means. So this is quite natural. So you cannot understand Buddhist texts purely from a linguistic, scholarly standpoint. Buddhist texts must be understood through the lens of deep practice as well as linguistic analysis. So one of the errors that we find in many of the early translations of Buddhist texts into English comes from the fact that many of the early translators were not Buddhist practitioners. They were just scholars of dead Indian languages, but they themselves were not practicing Buddhism. So they were translating the texts based purely on linguistic analysis of the words, but without the deep wordless understanding that comes through directly experiencing what those words are pointing to. These days, fortunately, we have a lot of monastics like Bhikkhu Bodhi and Bhante Sujato who have both the linguistic understanding, but also the deep experiential wordless understanding, which together gives one a complete picture of what the Buddha was talking about. So what this means then is that as the years go by and one's practice deepens, then one's understanding of not just the words themselves, but what the words are pointing to can shift, sometimes slightly, sometimes dramatically. And then naturally that leads to us preferring different translations for different terms. Another reason why there's different translations at different times and places is that any given word will have many different connotations, many different shades of meaning. And one might be trying to emphasize a particular connotation or a particular shade of meaning for a word. So maybe in the early stages, one is emphasizing a certain connotation, and later on, one is emphasizing a different connotation. So today I'd like to emphasize not perceiving, but contemplating. So ānāpānassati, contemplating as a more active way of looking at the world. So rather than a passive receptivity, more of an active, like contemplating, looking for these qualities. So I will inhale perceiving impermanence. I will exhale perceiving impermanence. So I spoke about this during the second Vipassana talk on Sunday. I spoke about developing the recognition of impermanence. So in that case, it's anicca sanya, the recognition of impermanence. Here it's anicca-ānāpānassati, so the contemplation of impermanence. I will inhale contemplating impermanence. I will exhale contemplating impermanence. And this is one of the things which mindfulness of breathing is particularly well suited for, because the breathing process is clearly constantly changing. The breath sensations are clearly changing from moment to moment. Of course, all sensations are clearly changing moment to moment, but it's particularly obvious with the breathing. Because the breathing is an activity, it's a motion, it's a movement, then impermanence is particularly obvious. It's particularly clear and easy to see. So this is one thing which I do recommend the use of mindfulness of breathing for, which is cultivating this awareness, this contemplation of impermanence, of anicca.
And
yes.
Reed asks, spelled anicca sanya, perhaps? Is that right?
Spelled anicca sanya?
Yeah.
Here, in this text, it's anicca-ānāpānassati. So not anicca sanya, it's anicca anupassi. So as I mentioned before, in the sutta, the Buddha is using the word anupassi rather than sanya. So anupassi, which means more like contemplating or regarding.
Thank you, Bhante.
Next one, it's translated here. So I'll say what's in the Pali first. So the Pali is viraganupassi, so contemplating or regarding viraga. And viraga, most places in the suttas, it means dispassion. So freedom from lust, freedom from craving, freedom from passion, obsession. So it comes from two parts. So the prefix vi, which can mean separate or distinct or without, and raga, which means lust or passion. So viraga means without lust, without passion. That's a very simple etymology of the word. But there's also a small number of places in the Pali Canon where the word viraga appears to mean fading. And I always found this a little bit puzzling. And the explanation here is that raga can mean color. So viraga means without color. So something that's fading. It's losing its color. But what I've found is that in the vast majority of places, you can translate viraga simply as dispassion, rather than as fading. So going with the primary definition as much as possible. And this is very important because the Buddha is usually laying out viraga as being part of the development of insight. So as we're developing insight, as we get a deeper and deeper understanding of the nature of reality, then what arises is viraga. What arises is dispassion. So one's intense lust and craving and obsession starts to melt away, starts to dissolve, to be replaced by this pure, clear, peaceful mind of dispassion. And it's important to emphasize here that the mind of dispassion is one of serenity, clarity, and joy. So in English, the word dispassion sometimes has a slight quality or connotation of apathy, but that's not the case with the Pali word. So the Pali word viraga does not carry any trace of apathy or indifference. Rather, the word viraga carries this tone of subtle joy, carries this tone of peacefulness and bliss. So it's the peacefulness of a mind which is not agitated and disturbed by passion. It's the bliss of a mind which is not agitated and disturbed by lust. That's what is being spoken about here as viraga. So originally I had translated this as I will inhale perceiving fading. I will exhale perceiving fading. So taking the interpretation that the Buddha here is talking about a more subtle form of contemplating impermanence. But as I was looking back at this sutta, so I could speak about it today, I was really questioning, is that really what the Buddha meant here? And I'm more leaning towards going again with the primary definition. So the way the Buddha normally uses the word viraga is to mean dispassion. So that's probably what he meant here as well. So I will inhale contemplating dispassion. I will inhale regarding dispassion. I will inhale directing the mind towards dispassion. I think that's more likely what the Buddha meant here. So since he already spoke about impermanence, well, what happens when we see that all things are impermanent? What happens when we see that all things are impermanent is that then the mind inclines towards dispassion. When we see that everything is unstable, insubstantial, constantly changing, then we stop grasping at it. We stop trying to hold on to them. we lose our passion for the impermanent, insubstantial, unsatisfying things of the world. So viraga then arises naturally from recognizing impermanence. As we contemplate impermanence, then dispassion is what naturally comes up in the mind as the next step. So these days I'm more inclined to translate this line as, I will inhale contemplating dispassion, or I will inhale regarding dispassion. I will inhale directing towards dispassion. The next one says, one trains, I will inhale perceiving cessation. One trains, I will exhale perceiving cessation. That's nirodhanupassi. So the term nirodha, usually translated cessation, and that's a perfectly fine translation. I think that's a great way of rendering this particular word. And nirodha, it's used in a couple different ways in the suttas. One way it's commonly used is to refer to the cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion. So nirodha then is used almost synonymously with liberation or awakening or enlightenment. Because with the cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion, then one has attained enlightenment. One has attained full awakening. And it's through practicing the cessation of one's defilements that one makes progress towards awakening. The other way that the word cessation is sometimes used is in observing the arising and ceasing of phenomena. So noticing things coming into being and noticing things ceasing to be. And when it's used in that way, it's normally used as that pair. So noticing arising, the coming into being, the appearing, the manifesting of phenomena, and noticing the ceasing, noticing the corresponding disappearance and vanishing of the phenomena that have just arisen. So when it's used in that way, it's usually used as a pair. So contemplating or perceiving arising and perceiving ceasing. So arising and ceasing as a set. And in that practice, that's effectively synonymous with the perception of impermanence. So perceiving arising and ceasing is just perceiving impermanence. So again, since the Buddha already spoke about perceiving impermanence, he probably doesn't mean cessation in that same way, but rather he's talking about the cessation of defilements. So noticing how as we perceive impermanence, as we contemplate dispassion, as we direct the mind towards dispassion, then what happens is our defilements cease. Our defilements vanish. Our defilements disappear. Our greed, hatred, and delusion cease to be present in the mind. And the final step here in Pali is patinissagupassi, patinissagganupassi. Patinissaga, which means relinquishment, or letting go, or release. Patinissagga, and anupassi, which, as I mentioned before, means contemplating or regarding or directing the mind forwards. So one trains, I will inhale, directing the mind towards relinquishment. I will exhale, directing the mind towards relinquishment. So patinissagga is more or less synonymous with nekamma, which means renunciation. So patinissagga, nekamma, renunciation, letting go, relinquishment. This is what Buddhist practice is all about. Buddhist practice is all about learning how to let go. Learning how to let go of our attachments, learning how to let go of our aversion, learning how to let go of our fantasy, learning how to let go of our self-centeredness, learning how to let go of our delusion. That's ultimately what all Buddhist practice is about. It's about renunciation. It's about relinquishment. It's about letting go. It's about the joy of missing out. coming up soon. So I will inhale, directing the mind towards relinquishment. I will exhale, directing the mind towards relinquishment. And again, you can use the inhalation and exhalation to aid you with this. So breathing in, relaxing the mind, letting the defilements fall away. Breathing out, relaxing the mind, letting go of everything. So letting go not just of the breath in the body, but letting go of all of our defilements, letting go of all of our attachments, letting go of all of our opinions, letting go of everything that we're holding on to. Letting go of our self-centeredness, letting go of our self-perceptions, letting go of our self-attachment, letting it all drop away. And so here the Buddha then simply says, Ariṭṭha, this is the detailed, complete practice of mindfulness of breathing. So this is the summary of what's said here. In the other Anapanassati suttas, commonly the Buddha will end the 16 steps by saying, when practiced in this way, Anapanassati is of great fruit and great benefit. Which is another way of saying that it leads to enlightenment, it leads to full awakening. And in particular, these last 4 practices here, so directing the mind towards impermanence, towards dispassion, towards cessation, and towards relinquishment, all 4 of these are practices which directly point the mind towards full enlightenment. These are vipassana practices which lead the mind directly to full awakening. So at this time, we can go ahead and do a bit of meditation together. So please come into a meditation posture. So particularly with mindfulness of breathing, it's especially important to sit upright so that the breathing flows very smoothly and naturally and easily. And if your breathing is flowing smoothly, naturally, and easily, please remember that for hundreds of thousands of people in the world today, they cannot breathe smoothly, naturally, and easily. There are hundreds of thousands of people right now who have a difficult time breathing, for whom breathing is painful and challenging. So please also bring up a sense of compassion for all those who are currently unable to breathe comfortably, and wish for them to be released of that suffering, wish for them to be free of that affliction. So coming into an upright meditation posture, and we'll go briefly through the first steps that we covered yesterday, just very briefly, and then we'll launch into the new steps we covered today. So settling into your posture, taking a few long, slow, deep breaths to help settle the mind and bring attention to the breathing process. So just being aware of the breath, however it is, whether it's long or short, fast or slow, deep or shallow. Just feeling the breath as it is, without judgment, without controlling it. Just knowing the breath as it is in each moment. And feeling your whole body as you breathe. So clearly feeling the entire physical body as you breathe in and out. Calming the body as you breathe. So breathing in, calming the body, breathing out, calming the body. Breathing in, releasing tension, breathing out, releasing tension. Breathing in, stilling the body. Breathing out, stilling the body. Making the body very still, calm, and serene with each breath. And feeling the subtle, pleasant sensation all through the body. As you inhale, brighten and intensify that pleasant feeling. As you breathe out, brighten and intensify that pleasant feeling. Fanning the flames of euphoria with each breath. And letting that excited euphoria settle down into a more serene, peaceful bliss. So as you breathe in, saturating the body with this peaceful, pleasant sensation. As you breathe out, letting the euphoria settle into serene pleasure all through the body. Breathing in, becoming aware of the movements of the mind. Breathing out, aware of the movements of the mind. So feeling the ripples and currents of movement in the mind, the twitching, the trembling of the mind. And as you inhale, soothe the mind. Like your in-breath is gently massaging or caressing the mind, smoothing away the trembling, smoothing away the ripples. So as you inhale, soothing the mind. As you exhale, soothing the mind. And as the mind becomes increasingly peaceful, the ripples and currents of the mind start to settle down. Become aware of the background surface of the mind, this vast blank canvas on which all the mental activities appear. So breathing in, aware of the breath moving over the surface of the mind, aware of that vast, open surface of the mind. As you breathe out, aware of the breath moving over the surface of the mind, aware of that vast, open surface of the mind. As you inhale, bringing up a peaceful, pervasive joy throughout the mind. As you exhale, bringing up pervasive, peaceful joy throughout the mind. As you inhale, unifying the mind. Exhaling, unifying the mind. So letting go of all distraction and dispersion, bringing the mind together. So as we inhale, bringing together the mind, collecting the mind. As we exhale, collecting the mind. And through this process, we're freeing the mind from desire, aversion, dullness, agitation, and skepticism. We're leaving behind the hindrances with each breath. As we inhale, freeing the mind from the hindrances. As we exhale, leaving behind desire, aversion, dullness, agitation, and skepticism. Inhale, leaving behind the hindrances. Exhale, freeing the mind from the hindrances. As we inhale, directing attention to impermanence, noticing the constant change in every single aspect of our experience of body and mind. As we exhale, contemplating impermanence, feeling it with every fiber of our being, inside and out. Inhaling, attending to impermanence. Exhaling, attending to impermanence. As you inhale, directing the mind to dispassion. So noticing the serene, peaceful joy when the mind is free of lust, free of obsession, free of passion. As you exhale, attending to dispassion. And as the mind becomes more and more peaceful and clear, as desire, aversion, confusion melt away, we notice the cessation of defilement. Breathing in, noticing the cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion, the three fires of the mind. As we breathe out, noticing the cessation, the extinguishment of the three fires of the mind. And as the defilements melt away, it becomes easier and easier to let go. So breathing in, letting go of body and mind. Breathing out, letting go of body and mind. Breathing in, letting go of mental objects. Breathing out, letting go of mental objects. Breathing in, letting go of grasping. Breathing out, letting go of grasping. Breathing in, letting go of self-centeredness. Breathing out, letting go of self-centeredness. Breathing in, letting go. Breathing out, letting go. With a sharp, bright, clear, peaceful mind. Inhaling, relinquishing, exhaling, relinquishing. So you can stretch your body a little bit if you need to. Feel the peacefulness of the mind as we start to come back to more ordinary activity. This is a time for questions, so please feel free to write out your questions. And again, keeping in mind that this is something to be felt. So this practice is something to be experienced. So in order to really understand these 16 steps, one needs to really dig into them. So one thing that's been hopefully quite clear yesterday and today is that this 16-step process needs time to unfold and develop. So in a short meditation period, you can't give much time to each step, but each step realistically needs several minutes at least for it to develop properly. So between yesterday and today, the meditation periods adds up to a total of about an hour, but that's still only 4 minutes first step. So it's not very much time. So when you practice this on your own, I really encourage you to stay with each step for as long as it feels right. So you might just keep digging deeper and deeper into one particular stage of the 16 steps, and that's okay. Let it deepen. Let it get stronger and brighter and clearer. And you might find that this gives you an enthusiasm for practicing for long periods of time. You might sit for an hour and feel like that's just not enough. And you might keep going longer and longer. Just keep digging deeper into these instructions. So they're not very complicated, but it gives a lot to work with, a lot of ways of constantly pointing the mind in the right direction. So at this time, I'll go ahead and take questions. Do we have any questions?
Not right now, but I'll wait maybe for people to write them. And I'll say hello to some people who just arrived. Well, not just arrived.
Just commented.
Yeah. Hi, Richard, Claudia, Matthew, Tim, Yudi, Maria. Good to see you all this morning. Hi, Melvin. And hi, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica, for the gifts in the mail. Anumodana.
Yes, much appreciated. Yeah.
So there don't seem to be. Oh, well, there is a question. Can we see Stan?
Sometimes I think that Stan is more popular than I am, which is fine. I don't blame you. Stan is very cute and fuzzy. I admittedly am a little bit fuzzy, but not as fuzzy as him. He's a lot fuzzier and also cuter, for being totally honest on this one.
Better hair.
Yes, no doubt. Yeah.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions except of seeing Stan, who will appear eventually.
The cat cameo.
Yeah. Well, maybe then we can end it for the morning. And thank you so much, Bante, for sharing Dhamma so many times. Oh, actually, Melvin has a question. Sometimes during meditation, my body begins to sway gently. Is stillness better?
Stillness is always better. So let the body be completely still. Sometimes the body will seem to move by itself a little bit. And that's not such a problem as long as we're not intentionally participating in any way. And as long as we keep directing ourselves towards stillness, then the swaying will stop on its own within a short period of time. Just make sure that you're not contributing to it in any way. The swaying can sometimes happen if our posture is not very good. Then the body will keep trying to correct its balance. But since our posture is not very good, it's hard for the body to get properly situated. So make sure that your posture is good, that you're sitting up nice and straight, that your hip bones are positioned correctly, and so on. And let the body be still. And the body will become still within a short period of time. Any other questions?
Thank you. Rupa asks, is this recorded? Well, it's currently in the process of being recorded. And then it will be stored in the archive of our YouTube live streams. So you can always find it in the channels together with the first part, which was from yesterday. And Tien is saying, it is nourishing me a lot. This is great.
Good.
Happy to hear that. All right. So we're meeting every morning at 8 a.m. for Sutta study with Bhante Sudhaso. And then in the evening, we always meet at 7:30 p.m. So we do 30 minutes of meditation. And then there's a Dhamma sharing and discussion afterwards. And this weekend, we'll be doing our first weekend retreat. So you can tune in. and practice with us for the entire weekend. And I believe that since we're not going to be um, going out anytime soon, we're probably going to be live streaming for the entire month of April, if not longer than that. So we will probably be doing also a week-long retreat in a few weeks. All right, actually we have 2 questions that just appeared, so maybe we can take those. Mehmet says, thank you very much. Could you please detail the mental activities?
So there's coarse mental activities, which are, for example, verbal thoughts. Those like fully formed verbal thoughts, words and sentences in your mind, images. So, for example, if we're visualizing something in the mind, strong emotions that we're participating in or fueling in some way, those are all very coarse level mental activities, very strong, obvious ones. Beneath that, there are a lot of non-verbal movements of mind, which I was using the imagery of ripples or currents, like in a body of water, there's ripples on the surface or currents flowing through it, because that's kind of what it feels like. Like the mind is moving, but it's not necessarily moving in the form of specific objects or clearly defined activities, but nonetheless there is movement in the mind. So that also fits under chitta sankhara, so mental activities. So it's looking for any either coarse objects or more subtle activities and movements of mind. That's what I believe the Buddha meant by chitta sankhara, mental activity.
All right, thank you. And Sarah asks, do you have any advice or meditations for folks who have to go to work?
Well, one thing, again, please keep in mind that there's a plague going on. So people these days are using the word pandemic, maybe because it's slightly less scary, but I prefer the word plague because realistically, that's what's happening. So when there's a plague, try to see if you can not go to work, maybe. I know it's difficult times that we're facing, and that many people, they're worried about their income and they're worried about losing their job, and those are very real concerns. Those are very real issues that we do need to be cognizant of. But we also have to ask ourselves, are we looking after our own health? And more importantly, are we preventing the spread of the plague? Are we preventing the virus from reaching more people? So ask yourself, is there another option? Can I call in sick for the next month? It's like, sorry, boss, I really can't come in. There's a plague going on. It would not be socially responsible for me to come. But if you feel like you really can't get out of it, if you really feel like you're going to keep going to work anyway, then number one thing is to practice kindness. Be very kind and compassionate and caring and gentle to the people that you work with. Or if you're working by yourself, well, that's the person you're working with. So that's the one to be kind and caring and gentle and compassionate to. And do your work with mindfulness and equanimity. So these are your basic everyday practices: kindness, mindfulness, and equanimity. Just keep that going all day long. And that will keep you going through your work time without losing your practice. Okay, any other questions?
Juni says, fennel and dong quai. How do you pronounce dong quai? Dong quai. It's Chinese. Dong quai. She doesn't know. Oh. Fennel and Donkey are herbs that can be taken to stay healthy. Thank you, Judy, for practical advice. I don't know how to pronounce. Donkey. Donkey. We have a native Chinese speaker, so.
But that's not proper pinyin. So I think that's why she's having a hard time pronouncing it. Anyway, thanks for the advice.
And see you all this evening or tomorrow morning or both, even better. All right, have a great rest of the day. Today the sun is shining, at least here in New Jersey. So brighten up your day and your mind.
Okay, thank you. So please continue with your practice and we'll see you next time.
Oh, and Ella says, thank you very much. It is nice to have the opportunity to listen to the teachings and join you from Poland. Take all good care. You too in Poland. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Here we go. Dangui.